I actually had the unique privilege this time around to actually be able to teach part of Tehillim as part of the Women's Initiative Nachyomi. And I have to say that it was really a very powerful experience to really go, when I was first asked to speak about Tehillim, I thought, Tehillim is something, it's a nice thing that we say, times of trouble, we pull out our Tehillim. But I thought to myself, how much is there going to be to say? What am I going to teach? It's not like a Sefer where there's a story, you analyze the story. It's Tehillim, right? I don't personally, I know a lot of people do, so you're probably some people connect very much to Tehillim. I connect less. But I started the journey, and as I began really researching the prakim that I was meant to teach, I started to unfold and unravel many, many layers of Tehillim that I didn't know existed before. I think I knew, meaning obviously the words of David HaMelech and the other authors. I know they're very high, but to actually be able to go through them and to find the deeper meanings was a very powerful experience for me. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And I thought we're going to just look very briefly as an introduction, talk about the elasticity of Tehillim. What do I mean by the elasticity of Tehillim? It stretches. Tehillim is everything to everyone in all generations, in all emotions, in all times of their lives. And it's an amazing thing that you have this one work of Tehillim that can apply all the time, in every situation. And we'll look at that in a few different lenses. First of all, in the idea of what is Tehillim? When you think of Sefer Tehillim, do you categorize it as Torah or Tefillah? Tefillah, right? We consider Tehillim to be the quintessential book of Tefillah, right? That's our go-to. That's what we go to in times of need, in times of happiness. We go to the book of Tehillim. It's our prayer book, right? On the other hand, where is it found? In Tanakh. Right? It's a book of Tanakh, and it was written in Ruach HaKodesh. So it's really a book of Torah. And so that's a really fascinating thing, because when you think about it, we have this dual relationship with Hashem, right? We were given somehow the ability to be able to talk to Hashem every single day through our tefillah. And Hashem talks back to us. How does Hashem talk to us? We don't have Nevuah anymore. We don't hear Hashem talking to us. But how does Hashem talk to us? Through the words of Torah, right? When we learn Torah, we are hearing the words of Hashem, whether it's Torah where it was written by Hashem himself, or whether it's through the Nevi'im or through the Ketuvim, but these are all words of Hashem. And so here we have one Sefer which is really both. It's Torah and it's Tefillah. It's us talking to Hashem, but it's also Hashem talking to us. And what happens in Tehillim is that Hashem is actually guiding us in how to approach him in Tefillah. Because the words which were said mostly by David HaMelech, but that happens to be the prakim that I was teaching, were almost all of them not by David HaMelech, but the words that were written by people were written in Ruach HaKodesh, and they teach us how do we express ourselves to Hashem. What is the correct way to express our emotions to Hashem? And it's an amazing thing, because we think about tefillah, we think that's our way of talking to Hashem, but actually tefillah is also Hashem's way of talking to us, because when we daven, even when we're not saying Tehillim, a lot of times we feel lost. How are we supposed to connect to Hashem? We're just mortal beings, right? And then we say to Hashem, Hashem, we say, Hashem, open my mouth so that I can talk. Give me the ability to express myself to you. Give me the ability to concentrate, to have the proper kavanot. And so when we daven, especially in Tehillim, it's actually both. It's us talking to Hashem, but it's Hashem giving to us the strength to be able to talk to him. So that's the first thing. Tehillim is a book that is both Tefillah and Torah. The second thing is that Tehillim is, when you look throughout Tehillim, what do we find throughout Tehillim? We find 1 million emotions, which is a very cool thing, because when we learn, let's say, the stories in Shmuel, right, about David HaMelech, we learn what happens, but we don't know what he's feeling. And then when we open up Tehillim, it tells us, oh, when he was running away, this is what he was feeling, right? And we can actually tap into his emotions. And there's all different types of emotions that go on throughout Tehillim. Some of them are happy feelings, and some of them are fear, and some of them are depression, right? A lot of different feelings. And what we learn from there is that every single emotion is allowed. We can express all of our emotions to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's okay. Right? You can imagine if you have a child who only can talk to his parents when everything's good and everything's happy, and they have a good, everything's great. But then when things are difficult and he's bothered by something that his parents did or said, and he can't express it. So on the surface, it might seem like a very calm and nice relationship, but really deep down, it's not an authentic relationship because he can't express what he's really feeling. And what we see in Tehillim is that some of the chapters of Tehillim, if you look at them, they're really depressing. And you're almost in shock, like how can David Melech or Asaf or the Bnei Korach, how can they talk in these ways that sound like they don't have bitachon? It sounds like, Hashem, you're not with me. Hashem, why did you do this? Hashem, I don't understand why good things happen why bad things happen to good people, right? And they're written in a very, very depressing tone. And you think, like, how can this even be part of our Tanakh or our way of tefillah, right? How can that be? But what do we learn from there? That it's all valid and it's all good because that we're human, and whatever we're feeling, we need to be able to express to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At the end of the day, we need to go back, and to be able to go back, Rav Sabata talks about it as like, this is the emotional truth. You need to be able to express the emotional truth that you feel in the moment. Afterwards, you need to go back to the intellectual truth and to know and to go back to your understanding that Hashem does everything for the good. But in the moment, are we allowed to express what we're feeling? Absolutely. It reminds me of my husband's grandfather, who went through the Holocaust, and when he started, he grew up in a Hasidic family, and by the end of the Holocaust, like he just he lost everything, and he was just very angry with Hashem, and he threw everything away. He was not a religious man for decades. He was not religious at all, and at the end of his life, but even though he wasn't religious, he continued to be angry at Hashem and to talk to Hashem and say, Hashem, I'm not okay with what you did. How did you let this happen? And because he held on to that conversation, right, and he didn't just say, you know what, slam the door, I have nothing to do, I'm not, right? He still had a dialogue going on. So at the end of his life, his later years in his 80s, 90s, he finally became religious again. And he was able to do that because he held on to the relationship. And tells us that all emotions are valid. We can talk to Hashem, and we should talk to Hashem however we're feeling. Hello, how are you? I'm just going to. Okay, so that was another. We were talking about the elasticity of Tehillim. So we said, first of all, it's both a work of Torah and a work of tefillah. It's a book that expresses all types of emotions. No matter what we're going through, we can find it in Tehillim and use that to express how we're feeling to Hashem. Tehillim also applies throughout the ages. I was teaching the third book of Tehillim. In the third book of Tehillim, the authors are mainly Asaf and the sons of Korah, and there's a couple other small ones. And David Melech appears once. One parak of Tehillim he writes. Right? And because it was seeming so strange to me, like, who are these other authors? I wanted to understand where they're coming from. So
sons of Korah and
Asaf. And because I wanted to understand where they were coming from, right, I found a lot of depth in once I looked into who they are, what was their life story, what were they experiencing, I found a lot of depth in what they were saying in the moment. But then it moved on from there, because then I would find out, well, actually, this is the parak they would say as they were walking into Yerushalayim for Aliyah l'Regel. And this is the parak they would say when they were bringing the korbanot for this, right? And so there was meaning also in how they applied in the Avodah and the Beit HaMikdash. And then there was the next level of how does it apply into today's times? Because Tehillim was written in a certain time and about a certain event that was happening in someone's life. But somehow it has that elasticity that it applies every single generation. And it's such a beautiful thing, because when we say Tehillim, we know that those same words were recited by our mothers and our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers, grandfathers too, right? Going back for thousands and thousands of generations. And they, in their generation, connected to Tehillim, they felt those feelings, they expressed them to Hashem, and we say the same words, and we feel the same feelings. We're going through completely different things, and yet we're continuing in the same tradition, and it's an amazing thing, because it gives so much power to our tefillah, because they're being, hinged on the generations before us. And the final thing that I was just going to say is that throughout our lives, whatever we're going through, whether it's ups or downs, Tehillim is there for us. And we see that because at the end of every single of the 5 books of Tehillim, they end with the same thing, right? They all end with some version of Baruch Hashem. At the end of the first book, Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael mi'olam ve'ad olam, amin v'amin. The second book, Baruch Shem Kvodo Leolam v'yimlei Kvodo et kol haaretz, amin v'amin. The third book ends, Baruch Hashem Leolam, amin v'amin. Fourth book ends, Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael mi'olam ve'ad olam, v'yumar kol ha'am, amin. Hallelujah. And the last book doesn't end with a Baruch Hashem, but the same idea. Kol ha'neshama tehalelka, hallelujah, every neshama should praise Hashem. And what we see from there is that even though each book of Tehillim has its own theme, it's discussing a different topic. And some of them are more happy and some of them are more sad, but the conclusion is always the same. At the end of the day, it's always Baruch Hashem. And it shows us that when we go through life, right, and we know this because we do it in our own lives. If I ask you, any of you today, how are you doing today? What's your answer going to be? Baruch Hashem. And you're all going through different things and you're all feeling different things, but your answer is always the same. And sometimes that's because you don't feel like getting into it. You're not going to tell me, everything's terrible, right? You just want to say Baruch Hashem and move on. But the reality of why that is because we firmly believe that no matter what we're going through, Baruch Hashem. Hashem is running the world. We can express our emotions. Things are difficult. But at the end of the day, we have this worldview of Baruch Hashem. Hashem is there for us, and he knows what he's doing. And so, with that, I'm so excited to have Rebbetzin Pearl here with us today. I turn over the microphone to her today. Rebbetzin Pearl is a real role model to me. Her beautiful smile and her passion and excitement for Tanakh and for Torah, and her genuine nature and how everybody just loves her. I'm so happy to have you here today. Rebbetzin Pearl is going to be, I don't have a thing in front of me, but she'll be talking about something to do with Tehillim.